The year is 1533, and somewhere in the red dust heart of the House of Lands, a girl is born under a blood moon. They name her Amina. From the moment she can walk, she refuses dolls. She steals her brother's wooden sword and practices until her palms bleed. When the palace griots sing of great kings, little Amina stands up and says, "Why are there no queens in your songs?" The old men laugh. She does not. By the time she is 12, suitors arrive from every corner of the savannah, camels loaded with salt, slaves, and gold. They lay the gifts at the feet of her father, King Bakwa of Zaza. But when they ask for the princess, Amina steps forward herself, looks the richest prince in the eye and says, "I am not cattle to be traded. If you want me, defeat me first." She beats him in archery. She beats the next in wrestling. She beats the third so badly with a spear that he limps home and never speaks of Zaza again. Word spreads across 7 kingdoms. The girl who cannot be bought. Her father watches all of this in silence, stroking his beard. One evening he calls her to the rooftop of the palace as the sun bleeds across the sky. "Amina," he says, "a king must have an heir. I have only one child worthy of the throne, and she is a girl." He places the iron circlet of the Magagia, the female heir, on her head. From that night on, every warrior in Zaza knows. When the old king dies, a woman will ride at the head of the army. Years pass like spear thrusts. Her mother dies. Her brother Karima becomes king, but he is soft, more interested in poetry than war. The neighboring cities smell weakness. Raiders burn villages on the borders. One night Karima falls ill. Some say poison, some say sorrow, and within a moon he is dead. The palace drums beat the death rhythm. Then, for the first time in House of Memory, they beat a different rhythm, the rhythm that calls a queen to war. Amina is 43 years old when she walks out onto the palace balcony. The crowd falls silent. She is tall, scarred, her arms corded with muscle. Around her neck hangs a necklace of lion claws. She raises her sword and speaks only 7 words. "Today, Zaza stops paying tribute. Today others pay us." And for the next 34 years, that is exactly what happens. She strikes first at Kano, the richest city of the north. Her cavalry moves like black lightning across the plains. Before the sun is high, the gates are broken. The emir of Kano is dragged before her on his knees. Amina does something no king has ever done. She does not kill him. She makes him send his eldest son to Zaza as hostage, and every year 40 slaves, 40 horses, and 40 bolts of the finest cloth. Then she rides away, leaving the city standing, but no longer proud. City after city falls the same way. Bachi, Katsina, Dora, Gober. Some surrender when they see her banners. Others fight and regret it. She introduces iron helmets and chain mail stolen from North African traders. She teaches her soldiers to fight in perfect silence until the last moment, then scream all at once so the enemy thinks demons have come. Wherever her horse plants its hoof, massive earthen walls begin to rise the next morning. Walls so long that centuries later satellites in space will still photograph them and wonder who built such a dragon across the belly of Africa. The Hausa still call them Ganuwar Amina. Amina's walls. They stretch for hundreds of kilometers, red as dried blood in the sunset. But every conqueror has a private ritual, a darkness they keep even from their closest generals. Amina's began on the night she took Kano. After the victory feast, when the drums were pounding and men were drunk on palm wine and glory, she walked through the captured palace alone. She came upon a young warrior, tall, proud, the nephew of the defeated emir. He had fought bravely. His chest was covered in wounds he refused to bandage. He looked at her without fear. Something inside the queen stirred, something that had been asleep since childhood. She ordered the guards to bring him to her tent. They bathed him. They oiled his skin. They dressed him in white silk. He thought he was being prepared for ransom. When the tent flap closed and only the 2 of them remained, Amina poured wine with her own hands. She asked his name. He answered, "Dauda." She smiled for the first time in years. That night the camp heard nothing. No screams. No pleas. Only later did the guards notice that Dauda never walked out again. At dawn his head was found on a spear outside the queen's tent, eyes wide open, mouth still curved in the smile he had worn when he thought he had been chosen for life. And so the pattern was set. Every new city, every great victory, she would choose one man, always the bravest, the handsomest, the one who looked at her like she was a woman and not a war goddess. One night of fire, one dawn of steel. Some lovers begged, some fought, some went to their deaths laughing, proud they had touched the untouchable. None ever lived to tell. The palace at Zaza grew its own forest of spikes. Hundreds of skulls whitened in the sun. When the wind blew from the south, the courtiers swore they could hear faint whispering, the voices of men who had believed for one night that they were kings. The griots tried to warn new captives. They would pull the chosen man aside and whisper, "Run. Hide. Dig a hole and pull the earth over yourself. If the queen summons you after battle, you are already dead." But no man ever ran. Pride is stronger than fear. Every single one walked to her bed believing he would be the exception, the one whose love would melt the heart of the she-lion. He never was. Years rolled by like war drums. Amina's hair turned the color of iron. Her body became a map of scars. Yet still she rode at the front, still the walls grew longer, still the tribute flowed into Zaza in rivers of gold and salt. And still, every night she returned from campaign, the ritual repeated. One warrior, they say his name was Shuwa, a giant from the shores of Lake Chad, actually survived until the roosters crowed. He burst out of the royal chamber naked, bleeding from a shallow cut on his throat, screaming that the queen had fallen in love with him and spared him. The entire city held its breath. For 3 days he walked free, boasting. On the 4th morning he was found in the market square with his tongue nailed to a post and his body open from throat to groin. The queen never spoke of it, but everyone understood the message. Even a second sunrise is too much. Old women began to tell their grandsons, "Never be the bravest, never be the handsomest. When the queen looks at you and smiles, look at the ground." And yet the bravest and the handsomest always stepped forward. 34 years of war. 34 years of walls. 34 years of one-night husbands. Then, one dry season morning in the year 1610, the queen called her generals together. She was almost 80, but her eyes were still sharp as obsidian. "I have taken every city I desire," she said. "Today I ride north to see what lies beyond the desert wind." She took only her personal guard, 100 women archers who had fought beside her since girlhood. They rode out of Zaza at dawn. The gates closed behind them. And the queen was never seen again. Some say she died in battle against Tuareg raiders and her warriors buried her in secret so no enemy could desecrate the body. Some say she found a hidden valley where the grass is always green and lives there still, waiting for a man brave enough to spend the night and walk out alive at sunrise. Some say on moonless nights, if you ride alone between the ancient walls, you can hear hoofbeats and a woman's low laughter, and the quick whisper of steel leaving its scabbard. But there is one story the griots still sing in hushed voices around dying fires. Amina did not die. She simply grew tired of men who could not survive her love. So she rode into the desert looking for death himself. She found him dressed as a handsome warrior sitting by an oasis. She challenged him the way she had challenged every suitor. One night, "If you are still alive when the sun rises, I will marry you and make you king of all the lands I conquered." Death smiled because no one had ever dared speak to him that way. He accepted. They say the stars hid their faces that night. They say the desert itself held its breath. And when the first ray of dawn touched the dunes, Death walked out alone. Since then he has never taken no more souls from the House of Lands. He is still there, waiting in the queen's bed, afraid to fall asleep, afraid that if he closes his eyes even once, the woman who conquered love, conquered war, and conquered even death will open the tent flap and whisper, "Thank you for your courage. Now give me your silence, forever." So if you ever travel northern Nigeria and see those endless red walls glowing under the moon, if you feel a sudden chill though the night is hot, if you hear distant hoofbeats and the soft creak of leather armor, ride faster. Because Queen Amina is still looking for the one man who can survive her sunrise. And she has been waiting a very, very long time. Long pause, only wind sound effect. Sleep well, my friend. but not too deeply. Because somewhere out there, under African stars, a queen who never lost a grave is still choosing tonight's lover. And dawn is only a few hours away.